I wish someone explained this to me. I would not have gone through some of the deep depressions. I would not have been so self-damaging to myself. And so I'm hoping that this provides some extra hope and faith in the process. There is an arrival point that sometimes happens right away and sometimes happens gradually. That we cannot predict, we cannot know, because every person's different. So you'll either fall into the camp that it just happens all at once. Boom, like one day a light just, oh my God. It's like an epiphany. It's like, you know, St. Peter got knocked off the horse on his way back from killing Christians, right? That's the way the story goes. Persecuting Christians. And then one day got knocked off the horse, and after he got knocked off the horse, he was completely different. Like, some people fall into the I got knocked off the horse camp, right? St. Paul, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. St. Paul got knocked off the horse. So you might fall into the I got knocked off the horse, and like it just boom. There's no process. It appears as though there's no process above ground, but the process was happening below ground. Or you might fall into the other camp, right? Where there's just this series of proofs, this series of events and things that bring you and arrive you there. You know? And it doesn't really matter which one you are. I prefer that you fall into the second camp. I prefer that along the way you see glimmers of your glimpses of your future, that you have periods that break through and show you what's really possible. They go away, but every now and then they show up, they crack through the surface. And you say, wow, I'm finally getting it. Not quite, but this is definitely a sign. Because it will probably disappear. But at least you've gotten the glimmer, you've gotten the proof. That's evidence that you are on the right path. The other group is the traders that don't see anything until they get knocked off the horse. That it's just always dark. That I don't have periods. I don't have moments. It's just bad until I get knocked off the horse. So I was that. I was just bad. Guys, I would sit and just sometimes, I don't know if any of you have seen the movie The Joker, the last one. But those of you have, you know, the Joker when he laughed but really was in pain? That the laugh wasn't a laugh of joy, it was a laugh, an uncontrollable tick, if you will. A tick that some people got confused. That while he looked as if he was experiencing joy, hysteria, he was experiencing the deepest level of dark, destructive pain. There were times when I was the Joker that I would have to sit in the dark alone in the wee hours of the night and just laugh. The jokers laugh. I used to ask myself, I used to laugh in a painful way at the fact that, at this question, how could someone be so bad at what they so love? How can you love something so deeply and yet be so terrible at it? How can you spend every waking moment of your life dedicated to something and be so horrible? And I would just have to laugh. The jokers laugh. So some traders are in that camp where it's just dark until they get knocked off the horse, like St. Paul. And then there are some traders who get the glimpses along the way. It's not quite as dark along the way because they have these occasional bursts of light. I prefer that be you, but it may not be. You might fall in the other camp. And I've learned over the years that this is not something you can choose. You are what you are. You're one or the other. I wish I had a coach. I wish I had a mentor. I wish I had someone who had already gone through this and could explain to me,
this is the way,
that this is okay. This is good. Just keep going. It's there. Guys, you know, I've always told you that I relate a lot of things to religious stories, if you will, for lack of a better phrase, because my mother made sure that I lived half of my life in church, basically. And it was just her thing, you know. And so as a kid, since it's all I had, I related everything that happened to me in these terms. And so I don't know if you remember the story of Moses and how he received his life mission, which was to free his people from Egypt, right? And upon finally being released, Moses was allowed to take his people out of Egypt, and they begin their trek to the promised land. Now, this promised land was supposed to be a land of milk and honey flowing, a land of ecstasy, a land of ease and delight, flowing with milk and honey. Everyone was excited, leaving slavery to the land of freedom. Now, this promised land from Egypt was about a 2.5-week journey, as the story would be told. But yet, Moses and his people, this was Egypt, and this was the promised land. Egypt and the promised land. They traveled around the promised land for 40 years. It was 2.5 weeks away, but they traveled around and around and around and around for 40 years. And it is only after 40 years that they were allowed to enter into the promised land. Now, if you have studied any of the Christian faith, you will understand that 40 is a representative number. It's symbolic of something. Whether it was 40 years or not doesn't really matter. This is symbolic of completion. This is a number of completion. It's symbolic. So whether it was 40 years or not, it's saying that until the process was complete, they were not allowed to enter into the promised land. What had to happen was that all the people who were used to being slaves in Egypt, every single one of them had to die. You see, they left Egypt with the slave mentality. They left Egypt with all knowing nothing but slavery. Their minds were not free. Their spirits were not free. They could not have the proper vision. They could not see or believe the proper things. Many of them in the wilderness wanted to go back. They started saying that our lives were better as slaves. What have you done to us, Moses? You brought us into this wilderness to die? And every single one of those troublemakers had to freaking die. Until nothing left, until no one left, was the only people left were the kids, the new generation that were born that never knew slavery. And when the last person was gone, they were allowed to enter. The people were purified. The old was done away with. The process, 40 years, was complete. So much so was this the case that Moses, who had also come from Egypt, was not allowed to enter. He too had to die. Crazy, no? There are parts of who you are right now. Those parts are from Egypt, traders. They have to die. You can't become profitable, which is the land of milk and honey. You can't experience the milk and honey until certain things die. The process I've explained to you is the process of killing off what shouldn't be there. I told you this story in a variety of different ways. I told you the same story through the lesson I taught my twin girls. You have to remove certain things to get certain things, to see certain things, to realize certain things. Certain things have to be done away with. Certain things have to die. You can't gain your life before you first lose your life. You can't leap before you first squat. A seed has to be put down in the ground first before it grows upward. You have to lose before you can ever become a winner. It's just the natural order of things. The loss is first, the winning is second. And this is something I wish I intimately understood during my process.